What are the best skills in the Oblivion Remake? What skills should you include in your builds, and what skills should you never really think about? So in this tier list, I'm going to be organizing these skills based on how strong I think they are. This is especially for Master Mode. So one of the main things we're considering is, does this skill deserve a major skill slot? In other words, do we run this skill throughout the entire playthrough, and is it good enough to run in our build? So to begin, let's start with acrobatics. So acrobatics, in terms of like actual gameplay value, is kind of questionable. The only real use case for it, outside of like jumping to higher like things, is like repositioning. So if we're thinking about it in terms of like using it in combat and like actual gameplay, there's not really that many jumps in the game where you need like high acrobatics to get like some super rare item, or like there's never really instances where you can make certain jumps to have it be super relevant in combat for the most part. It can be nice to have, but it's definitely not a good skill to run as like a major part of your build. Like you can always just jump around and level it over time anyways. It's not really worth investing in early, especially on Master Mode. It doesn't help you kill things. Like Master Mode is very polarizing, where your build either works and you're killing it, or it sucks and you're dying. And if you run acrobatics out of the gate, it's probably gonna hurt you. You can always just jump to level it, but yeah, I don't recommend running it. Alchemy, I think, is A tier, and we can put an asterisk next to this. It's S tier if you want to grind out running it to its maximum potential. So the advantage of alchemy is that you can constantly be regenning like health, stamina, and magicka through long duration restore potions. And essentially what you would be forced to do if you want to run this long term and to make it broken is to constantly get ingredients, go to shops, harvest stuff, make a ton of potions, and then constantly either open your inventory or hotkey a bunch of different types of potions. And this is a lot of micro to get this effect. I don't even think it's necessary. It's still strong. Like even if you just use alchemy to just pop a potion or make like whatever you need, you know, like shield potions or, cure disease or whatever utility potion you need at the time, or just basic like health restore, stamina restore, magicka restore, stuff like this. It's good for just that. I would still say it's like A tier. It's still really strong. You can take cheap, common, inexpensive ingredients, throw them in a thing, and then get profit out of it, as well as big effects. So it's still really good. But you could argue it's S tier if you want to run it to its fullest potential. I don't think many players would want to do that. Personally, I don't even want to do that, and I'm doing ridiculous things with like some of my destruction builds. But that being said, it's still really strong. Alteration, I think alteration is good. The big issue with it is it gives you effects that are like great utility, like feather, water breathing, which is circumstantially useful. It has a lot of like fringe use cases. One of the major things that's good about it is the shield effects. So you can like pop a shield early to hit like armor cap early, but then once you hit armor cap, it doesn't really matter as much. But it's not terrible. It's definitely like a good like, you know, 5th, 6th, or 7th slot. Like it's not like one of your top 4 skills for your build. It's something that will like augment certain aspects of a build and just function as like utility. But it's decent. I usually level it after the fact. I won't run it as one of my major skills, but I'll like run it as a secondary thing, circumstantially. Armor. How good is armor? Well, is it A? Is it B? So, all right. So armor is good. I think I'll put it in B tier. It's only useful if you're running weapons. Like if you're a mage, it's useless to you. So just by virtue of that, but also it's almost like a necessary utility tool. It can give you stat scaling on your armor and weapons a little bit. And when you're a master armor, you just need a single repair hammer. So then it just, you can, you know, be used without like a huge hindrance in terms of carry weight. When you don't have master armor, you have to carry at least like 20 to 30 repair hammers, sometimes more, to keep your armor and weapons fully repaired. But it's not like game breaking. It's not like overpowered. It's more of like something that you have to run or that you want to run if you run heavy armor, physical weapons, bows, like stuff like this, like non-magic weapons. Staffs don't need it, and you know, if you're just casting spells, you don't need it. But it's good. It's definitely something that you run as like one of the utility skills for certain builds, I would say. Athletics. Is it A? I think it's high B. I think athletics is something that's nice to have. That if you have extra slots open, like if you already have your build outlined and you know exactly what you need, it's nice to throw in there. I'm running it currently on a build just as like a bonus slot. It gives you a little bit more movement speed. It makes your sprinting a little bit more efficient. So it's just good for mobility. It's essentially something you add to your build if you want to add mobility. If you're already on a race that's fast, or you know you're going to be on like a high speed build, like right out of the gate, it's not really that useful. So I kind of don't really recommend it unless you have a free slot. So outside of that, it's decent. Moving faster is good. Blade, I'm going to put in high A tier. So Blade is good, not because of the changes. The way I view Blade might be kind of skewed because of the way that damage works in Master Mode. But essentially, if you want to kill things reliably in Master Mode, you're going to be destruction ramping, and Blade has Dagger and Short Sword, which attack fast, and those give you fast activating, essentially, enchantment procs. So like as you're swinging, you're triggering an enchantment every swing. So if you put like weakness to magic, weakness to fire, or whatever, weakness to magic, weakness to shock, and then you cast a second instance of that spell and like ramp those effects and then start hitting with elemental damage, Blade can rapidly pump that out, but you can make it so that you one-shot off of that. But Blade has faster attack rate than Blunt. Now, if you want to use Blade in terms of like no enchantment or low enchantment, and you want to use like the damage scaling, it does have 20% chance to bleed on hits at Expert, and it also gains the 15% weakness to normal weapons for 5 seconds at Journeyman, and then the weakness to normal weapons 30% for 10 seconds at Mastery. So if you open with a power attack, you damage ramp your physical. So it's good for that. It's pretty good. Like, it's one of the major ways of dealing damage in the game outside of destruction magic, but it also can be ramped with destruction magic to rapidly kill. And there's also other things like the stealth attacks have an 8 times multiplier on daggers, so that's also pretty good. So there's quite a lot. There's a few ways to squeeze damage out of these on Master Mode to reliably kill, or at the very least deal meaningful damage. So definitely A tier. This is like one of the major things you would run a build around. Next is Block. Block is good because it's very effective, and there are like, I've been doing a run where I have a high elf that has like almost no armor, and every time I block an attack with just like 30 block, it allows me to tank attacks that would usually one-shot me, like power attacks from like Zivilize, or however the hell you say that. So like, just by virtue of tanking damage like in between attacks and then staggering enemies, it's really good. But it also has shield bash, so you can offensively like interrupt and stagger. It's just really strong. It's good even on a caster because you can cast spells with a shield equipped. So if you want to have like a defensive option to stagger and interrupt attacking enemies to give yourself an opportunity to cast like a touch spell, touch spells are good because they're cheaper, so you can get more effect, like more magnitude for less magic cost. So you can kind of be this like aggressive like spell sword type thing, or shield caster, or just use it with like blade or blunt and just go to town and attack stuff. So either way, it's just really strong. It's a really good skill to include in your builds. Blunt, I'm gonna put on the lower end of A tier. It doesn't have the stealth bonuses, the 8 times multiplier that daggers have. It also doesn't have the super fast attacking weapon like Blade has. So for that reason, like if we're running Destruction Nuke with melee as a delivery system, like using the enchantment on the melee to deliver like elemental damage, the blades can pump that out faster due to attack rate. But there are some interesting things with Blunt. It has a 20% chance to silence at Expert, and then at Journeyman, you get 15% damage or 15% shield, and then at master, like on power attack, and then at master you get 30% shield. Now, if you're 100 blunt, you probably are going to be hitting armor cap if you're running heavy armor without that pretty easily. So the extra shield is only really useful for like early to middle game, but it is interesting, and the silence is interesting as well. But the silence, I think, is like it can trigger on any normal attack, and it's like 20% chance or something like that. So like 1 in 5 of your hits are going to silence. Now that's not bad, but if I'm casting weakness to magic spells on enemies and then hitting them, I can one-shot them with these weapons. So like, why silence when you can one-shot? And this is on master mode, like explicitly. But blunt is still good. There's still use case. The shield is nice for certain builds. Maybe you run out with light armor or something to do for fun. Next is conjuration. I think conjuration is easy S tier. So the big downside to conjuration is if you accidentally attack your minions. But if you are used to playing around minions, or you get used to playing around minions, you can leverage these things to beat the game for you easily. If you get like the Daedroth or the Storm Atronach or the Zivali, you can use those to just like win fights. You just cast it. It either almost kills an enemy or group of enemies, or just straight up wins fights. The other thing too is in master mode, you deal less damage and you take more damage. Your summons take normal damage and deal normal damage. So when they hit things, it always hits hard. And they will very often 1 to 2 shot enemies that you struggle to kill without doing things like damage ramping destruction. And the big way to play around minions is you put them in between you and the enemy when you need to retreat. And when you want to be aggressive, you find open space and you summon them near the center of the open space. And you try to like play to the left or right of it, like attacking the enemy while like to the left or right of your summon. You don't want to be in between the enemy and your summon. You want to be to the side of it. And if the summon is blocking you and you can't really attack too much, try to find a different target, cast utility spells, heal yourself, do whatever. It's pretty easy to play around. You just have to get used to playing around it. And the other thing too is sometimes the summon will body block you. You can always resummon it or try to like sprint around it, stuff like that. But easy S tier, easily beats the game. You can literally do nothing but summon things and hide and beat the game. So it's pretty overpowered. Destruction, I think, is also overpowered, but it requires way more work. So to win with summons, you just use the ability and you win. To win with destruction, you have to hit enemies with 2 spells, and then you have to alternate them. So like you'll do a weakness to magic plus an element 100%, then you hit them with a second one, and then usually 2 plus like a big damage spell that does at least 50 damage is enough to kill. But for some enemies, you'll have to recast the first debuff. So what happens is you debuff them, put them at 100% weakness to magicka and like fire, for example, and then you ramp that to like 200%, and then you ramp that to like 400%, and then you hit them for 50 damage, and then it spikes way up and kills them. So that's the way destruction wins the game. But the nice thing about destruction is all of your enchanted weapons can also have elements on them, like elemental damage. So then you ramp all of your weapons, including bows, which is actually like a thing that I don't really see discussed too much, because everyone's thinking in terms of stealth archer, but you really need to be thinking in terms of spell archer, because that shit is really good. Because instead of casting spells to do a ranged attack and using magicka, you just shoot an arrow and then consume the charge on your weapon, which can be replenished if you have Soul Trap on your weapon or any spell, and you have Azura's Star. You can just infinitely recharge stuff. And then you can also summon things, kill those summons, and fill your Azura's Star that way. So there's some pretty huge gimmicks in the game right now that are pretty crazy. Hand-to-hand seems like it's terrible. It was terrible in the original game. It doesn't have damage ramp. Like, you can't enchant your hands to do elemental damage. So like if we couldn't do elemental damage and we wanted to do master mode with blade or block or blade or blunt, it would be rough. You would be having a hell of a time. You can do it, it's possible. It'll just take way more attacks and be super inefficient. Whereas if you just cast 2 spells from destruction and then hit them with like an enchanted weapon, you just insta kill everything. Hand to hand doesn't have that. It has worse damage scaling. It has worse perks. It seems like it's terrible. I don't think there's any like real gimmick to squeeze out of it to like make it good. Maybe that's the case. I doubt it. For master mode, it seems suspect. Heavy armor, I think, is high A tier. I think it's really good. It starts off with higher defense than light armor. Light armor and heavy armor both can hit armor cap, but light armor tends to do it later. Now, that's how it was in the original Oblivion. I don't know if that's still the way it scales, because in original Oblivion, I believe there were different perks that gave you like higher armor ratings based on the breakpoint, so they might have split them so the light armor has lower overall cap. But heavy armor just protects you and lets you hit armor cap pretty easily. It's also pretty abundant. As soon as you hit like level 22, bandits start wearing Daedric armor. So it's pretty easy to get Daedric armor and hit armor cap. And it's pretty absurd. And armor cap is 85% damage reduction. So you're tanking. Even on master mode, you're tanking. So pretty good. Definitely recommend running it. Illusion, I think it's just okay. It doesn't really do anything that's like hugely useful. I think Illusion's biggest problem is that some of its big value spells are just straight up ineffective. So like if you go to paralyze things, it costs you a lot of magicka, and a lot of the best enemies in the game are either resistant or immune to paralyze. So you just have this like useless effect where it's like, it could be good if it was super reliable, because then you could just like mass paralyze a group, or just like 10-20 second paralyze an enemy and then wail on them with whatever weapon of choice you want. Then it would be much better, but it's like always been unreliable and inconsistent. And all the other things like the mind control stuff, I've never found it to be good. If there is a use case for it that is objectively good, definitely let me know, and I can always evaluate it. I'm not going to completely write it off just because I might not be aware of something. If that's the case, I can change my mind on literally any of these. If you have like a really solid argument and you have the math to prove it, you can easily change my mind. But as far as I can tell, Illusion is just kind of not there. Light armor. So light armor, it's kind of, I don't know, I think it's like here. I think it's like B tier. So heavy armor is nice because you hit armor cap super quick. And light armor is kind of like the option for having some kind of protection. I feel like light armor is best when you're combining it with alteration so that you can get the armor cap easier. Whereas with heavy armor, you can easily hit armor cap without it. But for master mode, it's very extreme. So having higher defense early, even if you are using alteration, is better. So like right now I have a character that I just got to level 26 that's running full ebony armor and is at 45 base armor. So I still use some alteration to get to armor cap. But as I level up and, you know, get the 125 durability armor ability, which is pretty nice, I'll easily hit armor cap probably in like a few hours of playtime, and then my build is set. So for like light armor, you get like more movement speed, but less actual protection. And in some cases, you're better off just being a tank than you are avoiding things, because then you can actually like cast spells and focus on winning fights instead of like focusing on avoiding getting hit so much. But it really depends on your playstyle. But the big advantage of heavy armor is that if your back's against the wall, you're better off having armor cap than not. So I think of the two, heavy armor is a little bit better. But playing like aggressively and quickly can be valuable, and I have a character that's basically like 10% shield right now that's an endgame like fighting thing. So, but I do get one shot if I like catch like a power attack from a difficult enemy, so hard to say. But you can still hit like armor cap. It just takes longer. The issue though is like leveling it is hard. Like if I want to level like a spell casting thing, I can do that super easily, but leveling like armor, you have to pay like trainers, and then it's like every like 5 per level, costs you a lot of money. Can be kind of cumbersome to hit like high levels in it. So usually you will hit like level 20, especially if you power level like spell making or like spell casting skills. And then your armor will kind of lag behind. Same thing with like blade and blunt. Next we have archery, marksmanship or whatever, marksman, archery. I actually think it's quite good, but not for the reasons you think. I'm almost tempted to put it in the low S. I'm going to put it in low S. All right, so here's the reasoning why. It's very simple. Archery itself is not what is good. Archery's marriage with destruction is what is good. So you get up to 25% chance to paralyze from just shooting arrows, right? So imagine you had a spell that every like fourth time you cast it, roughly, it paralyzed while also dealing damage. That's what archery is. But also imagine if that spell costs 0 magicka. That's where archery is S tier. You can damage ramp at range with destruction, the elemental weakness and the magic weakness. Like, you know, you do the 1-2 combo to get the first weakness and then the ramped weakness. And then you can shoot arrows that cost you 0 magicka that can be on an enchanted bow. And there's also enchanted arrows in the game, which will also further be ramped. So you can get a huge single shot damage. And I think you can also put an AoE enchantment on the bow as well. It'll be lower damage though, but you can do huge single shot like spikes versus like weakened foes from destruction spells, and you get to attack them for free at range. And also you have a 1 in 4 chance to paralyze. That is massive value. It also can one-shot if you hit with like 2 weakness spells, and then you can alternate those weakness spells, but do it safer than like the blade version because it's at range. So I think that bow is unironically like really strong for that reason. For stealth archer stuff, the damage isn't there. It's just not. Like, even though you get 3 times damage, 3 times damage pales in comparison to the damage ramp of destruction magic. So, but it's free spells at range that ramp off of destruction, because it can be difficult. Like, even if you know what you're doing and you have like good enchantments and you have good spells and everything, you do everything right, there can still be issues where if you run into too many enemies at once, you'll burn out of resources quickly. Now, there are ways to get around that, like if you spam alchemy stuff, but this requires a ton of setup. The setup on this is so minimalistic. Like, you literally just use 2 cheap AoE spells that apply the weakness debuffs, and then you just start shooting things with arrows, and it's really that simple. And it's very good. And then you can use Azura's Star to just keep refilling the bow every time you kill something. Mercantile. I like Mercantile, but it's definitely like something that doesn't really matter. It's so easy to make money in this game. It's crazy. Literally just join the Mages Guild and then pick up all the alchemy stuff, like all the alembics and whatever, like all the tools used to do alchemy. And each Mages Guild, if you sell it right back to the person who is in theory selling those items, they will buy all that stuff and you'll make like 1 to 2k per Mages Guild. And that's just in the early game. Once you get to like level 20, you can just go kill any group of enemies that are humans and get like glass stuff and Daedric stuff. And now that they changed Mercantile, if you sell high value items, it power levels it. So every time you sell or buy things, it starts power leveling. So you basically don't ever have to consider it and just understand that it will power level over time. Even after 10 hours of gameplay, like from just going through and killing things and buying and selling, you will power level this easily to like 50 to 60, and then once it gets 50 to 60, it just keeps ramping. Like when you're at endgame, you're selling Daedric things every single time you go to the store. It easily hits level 100, so I don't recommend putting this in any of your builds unless you have a free slot and you really want it for whatever reason. Mysticism. This is just like a weird one. I don't know. It has Soul Trap. It has Soul Trap. It has like Spell Reflect, I think. I never use that. You could use that. It's so like... It's too situational for me. I'm putting it in C tier. I don't see the value in it. Like, Detect Life is kind of like whatever. You could use it for stealth if you really want to. The Spell Reflect is fine. Soul Trap is really good, but that's like level 25 Mysticism. I don't consider it to be... Like, does it break the game? Does it win you fights? I don't think so. Maybe against mages with Spell Reflect, it could win you fights. But I'd rather just be the thing that kills than let them hit me and then flip damage on them. It's like Pyro in TF2. Like if I'm a soldier in TF2 and I'm the one who gets to decide where the rockets are shot and when the rockets deal damage, I'm in complete control of that of like a situation. Whereas if I'm a pyro and I can only reflect rockets and I have to wait for someone to shoot rockets at me, instead of being reactive, I just simply get to be active. So I'd rather do that, personally. Restoration. Let me think about this for a second. Restoration. I think it's like here, low A. I think it's low A. I think it has some interesting things. There's some things that I haven't been leveraging as much either that I wanted to experiment more with, like absorb magicka and stuff like this. But it does have good effects. Healing is good. The nice thing about restoration is it can heal, it can restore health, it can restore fatigue. So if you're running any kind of build that uses stamina, which most builds like leverage stamina to some degree, and obviously you can use stamina to sprint, it's good for that. But it's also good to be able to always convert your magicka into health, because no matter what is going on, as long as you have magicka, you can survive. And that is like one of the fundamental things of Master Mode, where if you're taking too much damage, if you're under too much pressure, if you're at the potion limit, because you can only consume so many potions over a set period of time, so that you can't like spam them anymore to heal yourself, and you would literally die, you know, if you didn't have a heal. This is like the thing, right? Like it's the heal thing. You get to heal. It also gives resist magic. So if you're not running resist magic to hit resist magic cap through enchantments, you can cast it manually to get yourself to 100% resist magic. So if you are simply a Breton, just by making a resist magic 50 spell that is pretty cheap, like even 20-second, 10-second duration for however long you expect the fight to last, you can cast this and just become immune to magic, which is crazy. And that's game breaking. But obviously, like, you can throw it on enchantments, you get it from other sources, fine. But I do think restoration is worth running. I run it in pretty much all of my builds. It's good for healing. It has some good utility effects. Oh yeah, actually, no. This kind of, let me reconsider why I'm putting it in low S. How could I forget about Fortify? Fortify Willpower? Dude, just Fortify Willpower is so strong. Oh yeah, and Fortify Magic. Fortify Magic is a cheap effect, and essentially what happens is you get 100 extra magic if you do Fortify Magic 100, and you get that magic right away. So if you spend like 120 magic to Fortify Magic to gain 100, you spend 120, but then you get 100 back because your magic pool increases, and the amount it increases by is usable. But the other thing that's huge about this is the ramping effect of spiking up willpower and spiking up your mana base. Because what it lets you do is spam whatever spells you want to for as long as you want to. So like, instead of needing, like, the big downside of alchemy is that you need the ingredients, you need potions. These potions have weight to them, and you actually have to like get the ingredients and craft the potions. With mana ramp, you just always have a spell that can just increase your willpower. And if you increase your willpower, you increase your regeneration. And if you cast like 3 to 4 magicka increase / willpower increases, you can easily hit like 1,000 magicka and be regenerating magicka insanely quickly. So you're like an infinite supply of your own resource, and then you can just start spamming spells and summons and win. So I do think it is low S tier, now that I think about it a little bit more. Security is bad. Security is, oh yeah, Alteration has unlocking things, which is nice. Security is what Alteration Security wishes it was Alteration, because Alteration, when you level it up, you can just be like, oh, a very hard lock, not anymore. Cast it, you cast like a spell that's like 50 magicka and it just unlocks it. You bypass the lockpicking minigame. Also, the fact that the skeleton key exists. There's literally 2 things that do what security wants to do, but better. So like, instead of having to pick locks, you can just cast a spell, and it's so much easier. Or you can just get the skeleton key and just auto open everything because it never breaks. So just like an item undoes it as a skill, and the actual like spells undo it as a skill. And there's also a power. Oh yeah, it gets even worse. There's a birth sign or whatever that gives you an unlock, and then there's also a stone that gives you an unlock spell power. Like, it's crazy, dude. Like, it can't catch a break. Sneak. Sneaking. How good is sneaking in Master Mode? I don't know. I can't say. Honestly, it probably isn't good. Even with 8 times damage, though? 8 times damage. So unaware enemies, melee range. I don't know. I'm gonna put it in low B tier. I could kind of see it being okay. I'm open to it being good or better or worse, honestly. Like 8 times damage is nothing to laugh at or scoff at or whatever. But I guess, does the sneak attack ramp the elemental damage? Like if I do 8, does it do 8 times whatever the damage value is? Because that could be interesting. But obviously you can't like apply a debuff to an enemy before you've hit them, right? Because of like you're in sneak mode. Now I've heard of people saying like the chameleon stuff is broken, where so potentially you could, if you're like 100% chameleon, you could cast a debuff, but like get out of range so they're unaware, and then hit them and do like an 8 times, potentially an 8 times stealth nuke. But that's basically just a less efficient version of doing the same thing against aware enemies with the actual destruction or archery or melee. So I think it's just a less efficient way of doing the exact same thing. And also you have to be in stealth, and also you might have to have like chameleon effect. So that just sounds like more work than just like doing the thing and killing the thing. Personally, speechcraft, literally useless. It's bad. Why is it bad? It doesn't do anything. With like 10 to 20 speechcraft, you can get people's disposition to like 70. And then you can cast illusion magic on them to get the remainder, like the remaining difference up. And very often you can also bribe people to increase that, or you can do certain quests, be a certain race. Like certain things allow them to like you more, but certain like quests or certain faction members will naturally have like 80 to 100 disposition towards you, which completely undoes this. Honestly, it's not that good. It doesn't really serve any purpose, and it doesn't really help your builds at all. It's not going to make you money. The main way to make money in this game is to get items and to sell them, which Mercantile influences that, but as long as you are selling items and buying items consistently, it'll power level no matter what you do anyways. So it's just going to always be leveling. Speechcraft, I just don't see any advantage to this at all. It doesn't help you in any real way. It like, even if it was like level 10, you can still influence someone enough to get them to do what you want. And the other thing too is I don't even really recommend running illusion unless you have like the time to train it up a little bit, or you just like feel like training it up. You could always just grab like a few scrolls that have like a charm effect or something and just use a scroll. Like you maybe need to do this like a handful of times throughout a playthrough, honestly. So aside from that, I think this is where the skills are at. If you think something is like way off, definitely let me know. I think for the archery thing, the real potential from archery is the fact that it can paralyze and that it can deliver enchantment damage for 0 magicka, which is huge value, because in master mode, setting up these like spikes with the ramp spells can be pretty difficult and dangerous, especially if you're not tanky. Like if you're relying on touch spells to do it, it's very dangerous. Even if you're relying on range spells, a lot of enemies will summon things. So like you can miss, you can waste magic, you'll have to recast it, and certain enemies can remove the debuffs from themselves periodically, and then you have to recast them again, or you have to cast more spells than you thought. Maybe more enemies are in combat with you than you realize, and you're out of magic and you don't have resources. So saving magic while being able to deliver huge damage versus the ramped foes is pretty huge value. And you also can regenerate magic while you're shooting your bow. That's one of the key things. Because if I keep spamming spells, every time I spam a spell, it interrupts my regeneration. So if I go to, you know, cast 2 destruction spells to ramp an enemy, and then I'm just now killing them with like a blade or with a bow, now I'm regenerating while I'm doing that, which is nice. And that gives you an opportunity to then spam more spells, heal yourself, use a minion, whatever. This is where I think the skills are at right now in master mode. Definitely let me know if you agree or disagree with any of these, or if you want to make the case for something. I am open to it. But yeah, that's it for now. Thanks for checking this out, and I'll see you guys next one. Peace.